The Building Better Relationships Journal and Meditation. We created the Building Better Relationships Journal and Meditation so you can magnetize the better relationships you want and focus on the positive role that you have in creating a better life through your relationships. We are excited for you to discover the gold within you that can help you manifest the love we all crave. The Building Better Relationships Journal has coaching questions that help you listen to the truth of what you want and what helps you to be empowered in love. The Building Better Relationships meditation is designed to strengthen your heart's ability to be that change you wish to see in the world. Why not download it now and think of it as a gift to those you love? If you love journaling and meditation, this is for you. Welcome to Building Better Relationships at Home and at Work with Angela and Patti podcast. This is Patti, a leadership and work-life balance coach from Arizona, USA.
And this is Angela, love and relationship coach from Sydney, Australia. And we are building better relationships with you.
Sharing new perspectives on being heart-centered at home and at work.
So you can draw on your inner power to make your relationships and the world a better place to be around. Hi, Patti.
Hi, Angela. How's it going?
It's going very different to what I had with you the last time we met on BBR. So I'm glad to be back, and it's good to see you, Patti, because I had a whole different situation with my computer. So we're back. This time we're going to do a premiere of the broadcast, and we've got a very interesting topic to address today, which, Patti, I thought I'd hand over to you since you already have that other podcast about the topic as well.
Well, thank you, Angela. And it's great being here with you today. In this podcast episode, Angela and I share on feeling over responsibility towards others at home and at work. Here's a question for the audience. Have you ever felt responsible for other people's behaviors? I know I have. What about you, Angela?
Maybe all the time. I have a funny habit where I kind of have this monkey mind which says, it's not my responsibility. And then I go, hang on. And I cycle back and think it is. So I was talking to a friend about it yesterday, and he's ADHD. So his brain does rapid cycling. So in the moment he can think if there's a crisis, he'll go in and he'll take responsibility because of the rapid cycling of his brain. And then I said, but I do that too. I just do it slower than you. So I'll go, okay, I should do something here. And then if I haven't, I start thinking after the event, I should do something. And then I go into habits of thinking I should do something. And then I do it or I don't do it, but I still go into the thinking. So yes, short answer, yes. How about you?
Yeah, I'm an overthinker too. And I also feel a lot of times that I take on things that I probably shouldn't take on. And it's been a habit throughout my whole life, and working on healing from that and not feeling that way. It's easier said than done, I find, but it is possible. And one of the things that I tell myself is you need to understand that you're only responsible for yourself and for your own actions and for your own decisions. What other people do or say or have their own opinion or the choices that they make are their choices. And it's good for them. And that's how you learn and you have your life lessons. I think, like for me, for the choices that I made, I've made some really bad choices. I've made some good choices, and I've made some in between. And they were all life lessons for me. And I feel like if I take on other people's responsibilities or their experiences, it doesn't give them the chance to learn from that life lesson that they're supposed to learn from. It's hard because I'm a helper and I want to help people. You just have to let go and let people make their own choices and their own decisions, and not just jump in and save the world, which can be difficult at times, especially if it's a family member or somebody that you truly care about. You don't want to see them going down a wrong road, in your opinion, but maybe that's the way they need to go for a while to learn something from it. What do you think, Angela?
Yeah, I think there's a big distinction between family and work. So our podcasts look at different relationship dynamics at home and at work. And you've got another short podcast. It's only 7 minutes. We'll have a link in the show notes, which is more about the work scenario. It's called Exploring Feeling Responsible for Other People's Actions in the Workplace. So I think in the workplace, you can rationalize and reason and come up with physical boundaries around your job tasks and what you've tried, you've done your best, and then there's a limit. But I do notice in family, which is where I think why we start the habit of being over responsible, where it comes from, our family relationships, it's much harder. And I was saying that cycling in the head where you think, oh, I should be doing this. I find my shoulding of myself is stronger when it comes to family and also some friends, the expectation around friendships. And I also have put shoulding on some of my friends as well. Like I have certain expectations in friendships which may not actually be correct. I might be expecting my friends to do something. So I think a lot of that, the family energy is the hardest one when we go into over responsibility. And that's where some of your decisions, like you shared, Patti, like sometimes you have to let people go down a certain path and let go. I think that decision is so much harder in the personal friendships or relationships, the intimate relationships.
Yeah. In the other podcast episode, the Exploring Life and Work with Patti, I do talk about it from a manager supervisor's point of view, as well as an individual's point of view, of feeling responsible for everything. And because you're in that position and you feel like you're the one that is responsible for everything, but really, truly, are you? People make their own choices and their own decisions. And sometimes they have to learn from those mistakes themselves and not have you come in and take responsibility for it. And sometimes that's a really hard way to let go of when you see what's happening. You give people the free will to make decisions or choices in their job responsibilities. And it's not always the way that you would handle that situation. But sometimes you have to learn from those situations to be better at your job by making mistakes. Or it might turn out wonderful and better. But if you take over that responsibility, there's not that chance of learning from that situation.
This reminds me of another podcast. Sorry, go on. Yeah.
That's kind of what I talk a little bit about in the other 7-minute podcast that I share about feeling responsible for everything in the workplace.
That's great. And we'll have a link in the description for that podcast. That makes me think of another podcast episode we did. It's like fear of making mistakes. And in the workplace, you have a protocol on how to manage that. Like, this wasn't done correctly, let's talk about it. You have protocols or HR or some places, some workplaces, but in other relationships, those don't exist. So you're kind of left to the wind about
Yeah.
how you communicate around the mistakes and how you repair when mistakes are made, and how you actually bring things to communication, because that can be one of the reasons people go into over responsibility, I think, is to avoid handing off something to someone when you can just do it yourself and you know it's going to be done. But if you hand it over to somebody else, you're going to have to put up with the level of work that they do, and you might have expectations. No, that's not going to be enough for me. So I think in the workplace and in personal relationships, we often go into over responsibility because we think, I can just do it and it'll get done. But sometimes what you're sharing, we have to hand it over to people so we can actually grow. There's an opportunity we might be missing out on for the supervisor to grow from learning how to communicate, maybe, or for the person who's underneath the supervisor to make mistakes and to grow as well, and for the team to grow.
Yes. And delegating is one thing that is very important to learn in the work environment. And I even think in the home environment, because I'm going to give you an example. If you're doing all the chores in the house, is that really fair to you? Is that fair to the other person in the house of not sharing responsibilities? Sure, it's probably easier to just do it yourself because you like the way that you do it. It might be cleaner, or you do it a different way. The person might be slower or whatever. But I think it's important that if you don't let go a little bit and have other people do things around the house, you become resentful because you're doing it all, and you're not having time for you because you're doing everything else around the house, cooking, cleaning, all of those things. And after a while and many years of that, you can become resentful. And that other person you may feel is taking advantage of you, but really you're not giving them the opportunity to learn and grow and help out, and them feel like they're part of a partnership. What do you think of that, Angela?
Yeah, I think it's important to see when the relationship's not in balance, when things are not, to be sensitive to that, because we fall into kind of roles which are not we're not conscious of. So one person can be doing maybe be bringing all the money back to the relationship, or one person could be doing all of the cleaning, but we just fall into that. And then we get the unconscious resentment. So I think it's really important to look at that balance in the home environment, because in the work environment, it's sort of tailored for us and it's given to us. So we just have to accept it to a degree. And at home, it's not even clear. We just assume things.
And it's easy to fall into those roles. But if you start the relationship and talk about how you're going to help each other and things like that, and who has what responsibility and things like that, and people step in and help each other and are kind and loving to each other, you won't have that resentment of things going on for long periods of time. It's also important to realize the difference between having empathy and taking on others' responsibilities. Sometimes you feel for somebody and you want to help them, and sometimes that is not good because it could be whatever the situation is. They need to learn from that experience and not have you jump in and fix it, right? Mm-hmm. They need to learn how to take responsibility and make choices to fix it for themselves. When you take on their responsibility, it's not giving them a chance to really learn skills to make those choices to make things better for themselves. Can you talk a little bit about empathy?
I think, Patti, you're referring to the book that I'm writing as well, and the classes I've been teaching since February this year for empaths, highly sensitive people and people in the helping professions, because a lot of people in the helping professions can be empathic or highly sensitive and intuitive. And intuition is something I teach as well, which is another aspect connected to empathy. And what we notice when you're working with highly sensitive people is that they will feel other people's energies. So before they even know it, they're feeling responsible for what the other person's feeling. And they also can get accumulated resentment for feeling other people's emotions. Even if they're not doing anything, they're still feeling a lot what other people are feeling, and they're feeling weighed down, burdened by those feelings. So some empaths, a lot actually, get resentment because they're always picking up. The secret that they are teaching us as a collective, even the highly sensitives, is that empathy is not necessarily you're a great person or you're helping people. You're just feeling their emotions. You actually can do things as an empath if you're feeling an emotion. You can release that emotion. You can maybe just ask a simple question if someone needs help without rushing and feeling like you have to do something about the emotion. Empaths can also learn, which is what I teach in the Zooms that I have. I have them twice a month, how to protect your energy, but also how to release energy that's not yours. And in the eBook there's a very important step there about discerning what do you do if you have to do something, if you feel somebody's emotions. So the main difference between responsibility and being empathic or having empathy is being responsible means it's my job here to do something here in this circumstance. Empathy is like, I feel for you, but I don't necessarily have to do anything. And I think one of the difficulties is that people who are empathic have this tendency to think, I should do this, or that person should do something. They do a lot of shouldings rather than actually asking, rather than asking like I do in the book, is it your responsibility in this circumstance? Which can be very clear in some of our job duties or our work environment. But I think in life in general, it's not clear. And what I've noticed over the years is that empathic people or intuitives tend to jump into a quagmire of stuff that's nothing to do with them. And they're doing what you're saying, Patti. They're trying to take away lessons that could be something important for someone. They're trying to make things safe. Mm-hmm. So mistakes don't happen, which is definitely something I've been responsible for. I've definitely tried to avoid disasters, and I've come from rescuing, done that. But unfortunately, in this period of our society, I think a lot of people have to face the music and see the problems they've created from the past. And this is me as well. And then actually take steps to address them, which is about taking responsibility. If things go wrong, it's things that you need to take responsibility for if you created them. If you didn't create them, then maybe you do have a part to play, but you don't have to be the one that's solving that problem. But clarifying where are you responsible and are you not, that's a large part of what I do working with people. Because we tend to get sucked into the emotions and think we're responsible. And then also I've noticed with empaths, they get into that resentment because they've been picking up the emotions, and they emotionally feel responsible when actually they're just picking up emotions and they need to clear that out and become a sort of a new self every time you walk into a situation. So I think that's an important distinction, empathy and responsibility. If people can start to explore, maybe that's something you can relate to if you're listening. Where have you thought, oh, I'm doing all this stuff for that person, but actually are you just sort of carrying emotional burdens and thinking you're doing stuff for them, or are you really helping, or are you helping, or you think you're helping the person? Because that's the other thing. A lot of empaths think they're helping, but actually maybe they're just sucking up the emotions and not really helping, and then they get resentful.
Yeah. You don't want to be resentful. You want to have a good relationship with others. And by taking over, that people could think that you're being aggressive or pushing other people out of the way. That can be another way that could be interpreted, which you're really, in your mind, you're not thinking that you're doing that. You're thinking you're helping. So those are different ways that you come across that you possibly don't know you're coming across that way too. Another way to help, reciting affirmations may help feelings of being overwhelmed and responsible for others. And a lot of times when you're taking on other people's responsibilities or job duties or work assignments and things like that, you get overwhelmed because you have your work and then you have other people's work because you've taken over their work too, and gets you to feel overwhelmed and resentful. But by using affirmations and reminding yourself, here's an example of an affirmation: I am responsible for me. And by saying that over and over again, that can help you realize, oh, I don't need to take on this other responsibility. I need to finish my responsibilities. And just saying those affirmations can help bring you back to where you want to be.
I love affirmations. And so, Patti, can you draw a affirmation for us from the work-life balance cards? These are cards that I've been using to help refocus. So I'll be during my workday, I have them by my desk here, and during the workday I'll pull out a card, just help me refocus on what I'm responsible for, or what I'm responsible for focusing on in that moment. So I'm just wondering if you can pull a card for those watching, what will help maybe heal whatever their little dynamic with over-responsibility might be. It's not so little a dynamic when it becomes annoying, though. I shouldn't minimize it. It could be an annoying dynamic or chronic pattern of over-responsibility.
Well, this one flew out, and it's probably hard to see. I have work-life balance. Well, this card really is a reminder for all of us not to take on other people's responsibility, right? How do you have work-life balance if you're doing everybody's work and yours? I do love this card because it is a true reminder. What do you want in life? What are the things that you want? And to remind you of that. Do you want to spend more time with family and friends? Or do you want to spend time doing your hobbies or your spiritual, going to church and things like that, that are easy to put on the back burner because you have all these other responsibilities, right? But you need to make time for the things that you love. And this card reminds us of that. Angela, what do you think of this card?
Yeah, so coming from an entrepreneurial background, I think that for me, that's why you go into being an entrepreneur, is because you want to have freedom and control. But if you don't put in the structures for it, you don't get the balance. So definitely that's been my last 25 years of lifestyle. Like, how do I put that perfect structure in? And also understanding when it's not in balance. That's a big piece today that I'm taking away, just looking at my life. It could be like we shared earlier, the roles in the household, if they're not in balance, or if I'm giving too much and not getting back in return, those sorts of things about work and what I put in. Am I doing too much? And that's a clue that I'm not getting, I'm over responsible and I'm not getting the right balance of my work and my life. So that's interesting card that came for today, because I think we might have underpinned one of the key habits of the people watching the videos, that they go into over responsibility and then it disturbs the work-life balance for the purpose of showing people what's not in balance in your work and your life. Yeah,
Right.
That's great. Thank you, Patti.
Thank you, Angela.
And so I wanted to just go one layer deeper to some of the emotional imbalances that create habits of being over responsibility. We started to mention some at the beginning of the podcast, like with families, we learn patterns. So in my experience working with people, it's often we learn these things in childhood about if someone's unhappy, we get really uncomfortable. So we learn from very early life to try to fix. And we have misconceptions about being responsible. Say if our parents are unhappy or a friend at school is unhappy, or we have a bad experience in our early life, we tend to think we were responsible for creating that. We make up these crazy stories about if I did this, maybe that wouldn't have happened. Or if I could take away my parents' sadness, or if I could stop them feeling that way, maybe I'll be better. And it's natural. I think it's a very natural human response. So that's another thing to explore. If you're noticing you've got a habit of over responsibility, why? Where did this come from? Where did this habit of wanting to fix people? If you look back at what Patti brought up earlier about not allowing others to go through their learning journey, if they need to make mistakes or if they need to take on responsibility and discover something and you're robbing them of that, that's another reason we do it from our early life. We learn how, if somebody's upset, maybe we could take that emotion away rather than just seeing that maybe they're upset because they need to go through the upset. And I know in my life that was a large thing that happened with me because I had parents that were constantly upset as a way of living. So I got a lot of anxiety being highly sensitive about not being able to help them or take away that upset, or having to live in that and not being able to take away that emotion. So one of the habits that I formed was being over responsible to avoid upset. So that's just another deeper layer there you can start to explore. And also this podcast, I've got a link if you want to get, and it's a private link, so it's for those of you watching the podcasts, and I'll be sharing it in a few other lives that I'm doing. I'm doing sessions now at a discounted rate. So normally my one-on-one sessions are $125 US for an hour session. So I've got a special in the show notes, which will be $87 US approximately, because it's in Australian dollars, the link. So it's around $90 US for the session. And you can explore those deeper underlying emotions that might be creating imbalance in the way you work with others or in your personal relationship. So check that out if that's something you want to explore. And so it really is for people who maybe you're in a relationship where you're feeling that resentment we talked about, or you're feeling something's not quite working for you in the relationship and you want to take it to the next level, or if you're just having emotional fatigue and overwhelm. So anyone that's ready for that deeper dive, then check out the link in the description. So Patti, I'm just wondering if there's anything else that's coming up before we close about this topic. Was there anything coming to you around where people can explore further, or any other areas you think we need to provoke the audience to look at?
Just think about if you're in that person's predicament, how would you feel if you were the one that somebody wanted to take your responsibilities away? Just step back and think, this isn't for me. This is for them. And to let go. You're there to listen. You're there to support them, but not to take on all of the responsibility. and just step back, take a pause, take a breath, and say, I am responsible for me.
I think that's a beautiful place to close. So thank you, Patti.
Thank you, Angela.
And thank you, everyone, for watching. And I look forward to next time, see how we work with our habits of work-life balance. And you can also check in the show notes. Patti has a link if you want to work with the cards as well. Please give us any of your feedback, comments, questions, topics. We'd like to talk on different topics. So if you have any other ideas for specific topics, please put a comment on where you're watching the podcast or listening. And thank you so much for watching.
Thank you for listening to Building Better Relationships with Angela and Patti.